All right, we're back again. It's Monday. Hopefully, you guys had a good weekend. Uh, I did. I had a very fun weekend with all the market action that was going on out there. I don't know if you guys were paying attention or if you're living under a rock, but we got a lot of the things that I've been talking about for a long time actually transpiring here. And I know what it is. People are always, well, it didn't happen immediately, so it's not going to happen. Hold your horses. I don't know if you guys remember what I said or not, but when we talked about it last week, I said that I thought that oil priced in yen needed to be above 12.5 or 13,000 in order for the Bank of Japan to have to move. Well, we got a lot more than that on Sunday night. It went all the way up to almost 18,000 yen per barrel, and we dumped back down over the last day here. But Japan is waking up right now. Markets in South Korea are already collapsing again. Stock market in Japan's down, or sorry, not Japan, but in China's down 5+% at the open. This isn't going away. Once you have inflation in an economy, these things take a little bit of time to play out. I would like them to move very quickly also, believe me. But what I'll say is all of the conditions are still being met for the reverse carry trade to unwind, for the Bank of Japan to come out and have to raise interest rates, which is exactly what we need in order for everything to continue to unfold here in the domino theory that I've been talking about for 2 years. So be patient, give it a little bit of time. And I'm confident that we are going to continue to see these macroeconomic events continue to transpire, which leads to, the price appreciation for XRP. So that's where I want to start it tonight. There's a lot of people asking out there on social media. Everybody wants a minute by minute update on things. We're still running, almost $1 billion asset management business, and we have, over 3,000 clients, and I've still got board meetings and all kinds of stuff that I have to attend on a daily basis, coordinating partnerships, working with a lot of our vendors and everything else. So I wish I could give you guys a minute by minute update. But unfortunately, I get on social media and share what I can when I can. I try to respond to a few people's comments. My wife does a good job on getting back to most people. And obviously, we have these twice a week. Get on here for free, my own time, and spend it with you guys. And I enjoy it. Always ask a lot of really good questions. We have a lot of good people show up and partake. And again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out with me over here on Facebook, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We'll get to Instagram one day when we figure it out. So without further ado, we'll jump into the questions. I did want to start off with an announcement. So I let the mastermind know this a little bit ago because that's when the promotion was live. But for you guys that are out there watching on live, or for those that watch back this later, we have a special for y'all. So 2 things. Last year we ran a couple specials in May and June. This time we're doing it here in March. So I know everybody that watches this probably has XRP and some other digital assets, but we do have the Bitcoin product that we've launched. So if you're going to bring over more than 1.1 million in Bitcoin, we're dropping the minimums down to 40 basis points. And the bigger deal, I think personally, is we're dropping the minimum to $100,000 in crypto for digital wealth partners. So if you had 20,000 XRP and you got some HBAR and you got some XLM, and your aggregate total, including maybe your IRA, all crypto is over $100,000, you can get institutional custody at Anchorage with an advisor and all the benefits that comes along with that. And obviously, we'll continue to roll out products for people that don't quite meet the accredited status. We did that inside of the IRA product. There's an algorithmic trading product that's already live. We have the first cohort of people, about 100 people. I think about 14 million XRP being put into that strategy to continue to compound and aggregate their strategy based on trading. And then beyond that, we're going to continue to roll out other products. I was talking to the mastermind earlier. I'm never going to talk about a product before it's ready ever again, because unfortunately, a lot of the time frames get extended by our partners, and it's not anything that I'm doing or our team's doing. We've done everything we can to be proactive and get everything ready to go, and we have to sit around and twiddle our thumbs until other people make it a priority. So, not to say that our partners aren't great, because they are, and obviously there's a lot on their plate as well. But good things do take time. Oh, but my wife is just bringing me all kinds of crazy coffee cups now for you guys. So this is our Hogwarts Ravenclaw coffee cup that we got going on tonight. Appreciate her. She's wonderful. All right. So anyway, back to the special. If you guys do have over $100,000 in crypto and would like to work with Digital Wealth Partners, you can absolutely reach out. Just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and use the contact us form. This person says, bring back Bluey. We'll get Bluey on again. I like that coffee cup. It's not so great to drink out of because the face points at you when you hold the handle with your right hand. You have to drink it left-handed, it is what it is. All right, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out here and ask these awesome questions. We got BGs. They say, Jake, thank you for all that you do. How does Japan's 8 month of oil reserves affect the unwind? Does this buy them time not to raise interest rates? Well, that's a good question. And apparently so, because we saw, the reaction in the market, and then we've seen this big move back down, over 5,000 yen in a very short period of time. They're hanging out around 13,000 yen per barrel, a little bit over that. But again, like I said before, that's the level at which I thought they were going to have to start acting, because that's a pretty significant amount of inflation that's happening in their economy in a very short period of time. I mean, they were up, 20%, 25% in energy cost. And that's exactly what I thought would, cause them to have to move. So we'll see how long that takes to permeate their economy and actually cause the inflation. And again, things are a little bit slower moving, right? It's not an instant deal. There will be costs that continue to creep up. You've already started to see that here at the gas pump in the US, but it's not at the peak of what it's going to be because the oil that's being pumped out of the ground now has to be shipped, has to go through, manufacturing, all of that stuff. And what's currently on the market will hit the market at higher prices when that happens. So that could be a couple weeks, it could be a month, could be days. I don't know how long the Bank of Japan is going to hold out before they raise interest rates, but I do believe if the oil price continues to stay here and doesn't continue to drop or starts to reverse and go higher again because conflict escalates in the Middle East, there you go. It wouldn't take much at all. So I'm continuing to watch that. With South Korea looking like they're going to invoke some monetary action, and China also down 5% in their stock market this morning. Feels like Japan is probably next on the hit list there for countries in Southeast Asia that are going to have to take action when their markets go haywire. So we'll continue to watch. The charts that I'm watching are the 10-year yield in Japan. It's currently hanging out about 2.18, 2.2. As that spikes up closer to 3, that's when you're probably going to see the rotation out of U.S. Treasuries into Japanese Treasuries. Michael Guyad, another guy that I follow on Twitter that puts out great information, he's actually looking at the yield curve rising. And he was like, whoa. He's got a whole fund and a whole bet that U.S. Treasuries is going to be the safe haven asset when all of this plays out. I'm concerned about that for him, to be honest with you, because I think there's going to be a huge rotation out of U.S. Treasuries into countries' own sovereign currency and their own treasuries. The JGB or the bonds, issued by Japan. Why wouldn't you hold your own sovereign bonds if you could earn a good enough yield on it, right? So that's the risk, and that's why I think you're going to see, U.S. Treasuries in droves flow onto the market. There'll be huge amounts of selling pressure, and when that happens, you're going to see yield spike in, on the bond yield for us here in the U.S. Now that'll be quelled once we have stable coins. So I don't know if the last little issue here with the Clarity Act or the skinny, Clarity Act or whatever they're going to do is going to mitigate that risk. But once the banks start issuing stablecoins at scale for or intra bank settlement, that's what's going to drive the demand on the market for those U.S. Treasuries as they flow out from foreign debt holders back home here domestically, and that'll stabilize the bond market. Will be good, but that's what I'm watching for. Still watching the yen versus the USD. We're hanging out at 157.63 here. The rails that they've kind of let this trade between, as far as the Bank of Japan goes, is about 160 on the downside, which is really the upside on the chart, and then 140 on the upside, or the downside on the chart. So if you look at that, we're pretty close to the 160 mark. Basically, if we get back above that, that's significant inflation there in Japan's economy, and they're going to have to act. They're going to have to raise interest rates at that point. So watching that chart, watching the 10-year yield, and then watching live crude over there. And again, that's hanging out around 13,200 yen per barrel. And I'm sure we'll get that question multiple times tonight, and I'm happy to reiterate what I just stated. But I think a lot of people want to know where we sit as far as the domino theory. We got Kegs. They say, appreciate you. What is your take with a few articles recently on Japan waiting to raise interest rates until June or July? Too much volatility. I don't think they're going to have a choice. I think if they get backed into a corner, even if they release the strategic oil reserves, I don't know that they're going to be able to quell inflation in their economy. It's in the Bank of Japan's hands now. So they have the authority to do whatever they're going to do. If they got 240 days worth of barrels, hopefully that facility that they're holding those in doesn't get bombed or something. I'm not predicting that or saying that that'll happen. Or maybe they're bluffing and they say they have 240 days worth of oil and they don't really. I don't know that that's been audited. If somebody could prove me, wrong on that, be happy to look at it and have that verified. But we'll see. If there isn't a strategic store over there, it's not going to be a good situation. They're going to have to act and effectively raise interest rates pretty quickly here. We've got, are we there yet? 86. They said, Big Jake, who do we contact to file taxes on our LLC? Which banks are you referring your business accounts? Blessings and prayers to anyone affected by the current events in Iran. Yeah. Prayers go out to everybody in that region. War is not cool. There's a lot of collateral damage and people's lives are affected. I've been praying about that a lot, because I get on here and I talk about these things, and I kind of feel weird that I'm excited about this because I do believe it leads to prosperity for a lot of other people. But obviously it's definitely detrimental to certain people that have to go through the collateral damage that it's causing. So prayers going out to people there in the Middle East. Hopefully this is over swiftly, and we get the result that we're looking for in a shorter time frame than I was hoping it'd be even faster than we've already been dealing with. But back to filing the taxes on the LLC, you can really work with any CPA on that. It depends on how many trades you've had, right? So if you're trading frequently, you're probably going to put your stuff through Coinly or Coin Tracker or one of the other tax softwares where you connect it to exchanges, and that way you're able to get a full breakdown of what the actual profit and losses were. And you'll hand that to your CPA and they'd be able to file it for you. If you've just been buying, it's a pretty simple tax return. There's no profits. It's a disregarded entity. It's passed through. You'd be able to roll forward the expenses in the corporation if there's no profits to be able to offset, right? So, you can write off up to $5,000 for the setup of your business. Almost everything that we do is a tax deduction for the services that we provide. So you're not going to be taxed on, the AUM fees are, still up for debate between some CPAs. We have some CPAs that are cool writing those off because they believe that because we provide custody and that's rolled in, that those, meet that criteria and you can write them off. And then there's some other CPAs that are extremely by the book, and because of some case law that's out there, they will not write them off. So it's going to depend on your CPA on the AUM fees. I can't give you legal or tax advice on that. I'd refer to them. But if you need your taxes filed, we do have strategic partners you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and go to the tax page, and we will work with you there if that's something you're interested in. And then as far as banks that are good options for, taking profits for your digital assets, we used to say Mercury. That hasn't been the case for a little bit now. What we found is Old Glory. We don't even have a referral link or anything for them, but they've been very supportive, as far as I know, about people, setting up accounts and dealing with crypto there. So might be a good option for you. And I'm sure that there'll be other banks in the future as we see the adoption of this asset class that are more comfortable with the risk associated with crypto and the exchanges and everything else as it becomes regulated. But right now, that is a huge risk you're running if you're taking millions of dollars for profits to your personal account from a crypto exchange. You're going to get flagged. This person says SoFi. SoFi is another great option out there. Mike Cagney actually helped scale that up before he moved on to Figure and Figure Markets. SoFi is probably another good option as far as crypto goes. In banking, you could also use Uphold. If you wanted to use their functionality, they have a good platform to be able to take crypto profits and spend stuff on the debit card. I think Gemini also has a debit card. So there's exchanges that are providing those services as well that you might be able to leverage. But if you did want a traditional bank account where you could walk into a branch, I think Old Glory is probably the best one for that. Ander70 says, Jake, my dude, hello from Mississippi. Do you think HBAR will have a meteoric rise along with XRP? Your price thoughts, and please discuss Project Enbridge and China. It's good tea. So shout out to you in Mississippi. Appreciate you being on here. I don't think that HBAR will have a meteoric rise alongside XRP. I would love to be wrong about that, though. It does have some ETFs launched for it, and so you could see significant liquidity rotate into HBAR's ETFs if they were looking to drive it to a certain price point to start using it for certain applications, which is what I think is going to happen for XRP. We just have to see. That's not something that's on my bingo card, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, right? So HBAR is probably in my top 3 cryptos that I really like. I think that it's absolutely going to be used at scale. I think it's going to be one of the main infrastructure layers and protocols that the world operates on alongside the XRPL and a few others. I think there'll probably be 3 to 5 of those, and those will aggregate the majority of the value and the appreciation in those tokens, right? So great position, in my personal opinion. I don't currently hold any because I think I'm going to be able to buy it at a pretty steep discount in comparison to XRP later on. But that's, again, my opinion. I know a lot of our clients hold significant amounts of HBAR. And then Enbridge in China. So I'm not as informed on this as I should be, to be honest with you. If you want somebody that's gone over this in detail, it's probably Smoke over there on Twitter. It's SMQKE. Yeah, that's the account. He does a lot of fantastic research when it comes to XRP and the white papers and everything else that's out there. The partnerships that Ripple has and SBI have, patents that are on the XRPL, and different integrations that are being made. I'm assuming, and this is at a high level, right? Again, this is not my expertise or my lane. You need interoperability between the BRICS nations and SWIFT. They've developed something called CHIPS, which is a separate settlement layer between the BRICS nations or BRICS Plus. And you would need some type of bridge between SWIFT and CHIPS. And based on the context of your question, that would be what I think you're implying. But again, not, my cup, well, not my cup of tea. I mean, it is my cup of tea. Obviously, it involves XRP, but it is, it's not been the main focus of my thesis. Again, I kind of focus more on macro and just at a high level have an understanding that a lot of these integrations and the functionality has already been built in the background. All right. Let's see here. Okie dokie. Nick, my man. He says, the amazing Jake. What's up, dude? Thank you for the kind words. What are your thoughts on the reverse carry trade as of now? And you think we will see a massive dip across all markets before XRP rips? God bless. You know, to time it on like what prices we're going to see when, I'm not a TA guy. But you know what? I actually pulled this up. So I'm going to share this with y'all. And then I got some super chats that my wife's going to come remind me about if I don't read them. So I'm going to do that. And then we're going to read the super chats. And then we'll get back to the other questions. Again, I think the reverse carry trade is going to play out. I think, you know, inflation is going to continue to persist there in Japan's economy. I think they're going to have to raise interest rates. Do we see a dip before then? So that's this question. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me know if you guys can see. Here we go. Show on stream. There we go. All right. So you guys can see this. So this is one of the charts I'm watching again. This is the live crude versus yen. But this is the chart that I was going to show you. So, and again, I'm not a chart guy. Okay. But you asked. So this is the stuff that I look at. If you look at the chop here in this, charts tend to rhyme. I mean, that's blockchain backers' whole thesis, right? Oh, it's showing the wrong screen. Hold on. We'll get to the right one. We are this one. Nope. There we go. Close that. Here we go. All right. Now y'all can see my screen. Okay. So if you see this chop here, this kind of moves this way and then back up, and then there's a bump and then down, and then it goes. This is very similar to this. This is very similar to this. This is very similar to this. And then you see it come down and bump here, similar to that. So I think we are about right here. Again, not a TA guy. Okay. Can't see this over on TikTok. But if you're on the YouTube, you can see it. So I think we're right in this zone right here before the next move up. And if you look at this on a longer time frame, I look at everything on log scale, by the way, because that's how I think crypto operates. You can see that we're right in the middle here. There's been a lot of support that's been built here. And I do think this is going to move significantly higher like that against Bitcoin. This is the XRP versus Bitcoin chart. Something that I look at quite frequently. I like to look at charts of assets priced in other assets. So a lot of people look at gold and they'll look at gold priced in dollars. And obviously gold has outperformed the dollar because there's a finite resource. People believe that it is money, which I agree is. And so, you know, people flock to that as a safe haven or risk off asset when they believe there's inflation in the economy, which obviously we have. So you continue to see that hold its value over time in comparison to other things. But if you price it in dollars, you only get one side of the story. If you price it in the S&P 500, and if you price it in real estate, you can see when gold is undervalued or overvalued based on other assets. So right now, gold is overvalued in comparison to stocks and real estate, which tells me that at some point it will reverse to the mean. We've already started to see silver and gold move back down. Futures on silver. Silver did come back down and touch about 80 yesterday, and then we're back up to 89 right now on the market. We were as high as 118 at one point. We're down substantially from there. I'm going to continue with my theme of silver comes back and touches $50. It's not something I want to say. I want the silver bugs and the gold bugs to make a ton of money. I just think when the reverse carry trade unwinds, we're going to see liquidity get sucked out of paper markets, and they're going to manipulate those prices lower. Not that the real price of either one of those assets is anywhere close to accurate based on where they should be. I'm just telling you how the economic game is played and what the system does. Okay, don't shoot the messenger. So that's what I think is going to happen there. And I need to get into the other super chats here, otherwise my wife's going to get me. So we always tell you guys to send in the super chat. So if I miss your super chat, please email it into us. You can email it to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io or info@beyondbroke.com. Either one of those, you can email it in, and they will make it their way over here to my desk. All right. So this one is actually just, kind of some kind words, which I appreciate. $5.89 on the super chat. Very nice. They say, Mr. Legend / time traveler / Confucius. We're so close, and some people, and still people with little faith. Can't wait to celebrate in the Beyond Broke Mastermind. God bless you and the tea lady. I would, I don't want to say I second that, but there's been a lot of people in the last 24 hours that are gotcha people. They're looking for any reason for me to fail or this to be wrong or it not to work out. Look, I'll say this. I wouldn't have put my neck on the line and come out here for 2 years and made calls and look stupid to be wrong. Okay? And this is the other thing. And this is what people really don't get. You can be wrong 99% of the time. It only takes you being right once. And you win. Because that's the trump card. The timing on this stuff is hard to call. Right? It's not like anybody knows exactly how it's going to play out. Even the people I think at the highest levels, maybe they know, right? Like if they're really orchestrating this to end up on a certain date or something, sure. But as far as I'm aware, even the people that are at a high level participating in government or, these enterprises, there might be a time frame. I think we're in that time frame here in 2026 for institutional adoption, according to Monica Long for the XRPL and XRP. Does that happen in Q1 here? Is it mid-year? Is it toward the end of the year? I don't know. But I know XRP's got to be a significantly higher price than where it sits right now in order for that to happen. And, aside from, and Let's Go over here's pointed it out on TikTok. They say BlackRock. I'm still waiting on a BlackRock ETF. That's my bingo, right? So that's my one space on my bingo card that still hasn't been checked off yet for a significantly higher price XRP. We've got the conflict causing oil to spike. And I do think the Bank of Japan is going to have to react to that. But the one thing that's still outstanding on my bingo card is a BlackRock ETF, which I do believe will play out. And I don't know when that's going to happen. There was a guy that in the mastermind earlier, it was like, don't reply to this comment if BlackRock's ETF is going to happen tomorrow. And I put a period. So I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't think anybody does other than BlackRock, right? And I don't work for them. I don't work for the Bank of Japan. I work for Digital Ascension Group, which is my company. So I wish I had all the answers for you guys and could tell you exactly when to buy and when to sell and all the stuff. I just know what the long-term outcome is. And if you are here for the long term, these are investments that you're making, that you're holding for an extended period of time. I think that that's going to be the way to go and likely going to work out really well for you. This is probably a good time for my disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor. Can't give you financial advice. All I can do is talk about my personal situation. If you need financial advice, legal advice, or tax advice, you should always reach out to a professional. You can work with Digital Wealth Partners, which is an SEC-registered RIA that have advisors that are licensed to be able to provide you that information. We also have other professionals that we refer out to and have in-house that have the credentials to be able to help you at Digital Ascension Group, CPAs, accountants, estate planners, tax attorneys, all those things. So go speak with them. I know enough to be dangerous, and you probably shouldn't listen to everything I say. Again, these are my opinions, and they are my opinions, not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. So take it all with a grain of salt. Watch multiple people before making your investment decisions. And again, I think talking with an advisor that understands this asset class would probably be very helpful. All right, other two super chats we have. Mr. Johnson, always with the good super chats. He says, Jake, please give us a detailed explanation of Tether and their various utility uses. What do you do, etc.? What do they do, etc.? Why do they need to crash for XRP to skyrocket? Okay. So I don't know if Rick knows what a stablecoin is or not, but he's talking about the company. So Tether is a company. They manage and sell the largest stablecoin in the market. So I don't know what the total market cap of Tether is right now. We'll look at it. Probably like 140 billion. And Tether's market cap would actually be reflective of the amount of outstanding Tether that's out there because it's a stable coin. It's not a cryptocurrency. So currently the circulating supply of Tether is $183.92 billion worth of Tether. And that's supposed to be backed 1-to-1 with dollar equivalent or assets in that valuation. They are the most profitable company per capita in the world. So what does that mean? They got a little more than 100 people that work for them, and they make about $5 billion a quarter. So imagine that. You got 100 people that work for you, or maybe a few more than 100 people, and you're making $5 billion a quarter. That is a lot of money per employee. And that's what per capita means. So they're in El Salvador. They're building the largest building in El Salvador. It's one floor taller than the current largest building in El Salvador. You know, kind of an ego or a demeasuring contest going on there, but they have the money to do it, so why not? They are the liquidity for all of crypto. And what I mean by that is, you know, aside from XRP, it has the most pairs of anything. Almost any coin out there has a USDT pair, which means that it can trade in between USDT and that token. If your token only has a USDT pair and isn't connected to other stablecoins or other tokens, it's probably in a not so great spot because you're very dependent on Tether. You know, when I talk about decentralization for networks, the way I look at it's the same way I looked at it when we did valuations on companies for multiples. Okay, so we would look at vendors, we would look at employees, and we would look at clients. And we didn't want any more than 15% of your total revenue being made up by any one of those counterparties. So if you have one vendor that supplies you 50% of what you sell, you probably want to diversify that. If you've got one stable coin that makes up the only pair that you have, and that's the only way in and out of your token, that is a choke point, and that is not a good thing. XRP has almost the same amount of pairs as Tether. It's significant. So why does that matter? Well, Tether again provides liquidity for the exchanges. If you go to buy, you know, outside of just dollars direct, let's say you wanted to do a $1 billion trade in Bitcoin. I don't know that anybody would even do the $1 billion trade in dollars. They would probably have to do it in Tether. And they would probably have to do a TWAP or VWAP into the market over a period of time. So the larger trades, like if you were to go buy XRP in USDC, you might be able to get some trades that were $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But any more than that, it's going to be multiple trades stacked on top of one another for you to be able to fill an order of 100 grand or 250,000. That's child's play for Tether. Tether can move $250,000, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, $20 million in and out of other cryptos very easily. So why does that matter though? Well, for the exchanges, again, they're doing larger trades. They're moving volume. They've got to buy and sell. They've got to, you know, rebalance. They've got to do a lot of things. And if Tether were disrupted and it was no longer available to be traded through, that would disintermediate pretty much all of the exchange's ability to access liquidity. The only way that they would really be able to circumvent that or help themselves would be to take all the XRP off the market and start using that. And what that would do, it would cause a supply shock of XRP. You would look at the Shane Ellis theory. If you haven't ever Googled Shane Ellis theory, I would go check it out. He talks about a $500 XRP just based on Bitfinex volume alone if Tether were to be disintermediated or have some issues, which, you know, I think is very, this person said Confucius or like Nostradamus. I think that that's kind of like a Nostradamus deal there. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if they're going to sanction Tether because of, it allowing certain adversarial parties to the US transact dollars at scale, and they've been able to document all of that. Or if there's something on the balance sheet of Tether that will have issues during the reverse carry trade, and that's what will cause it to depeg. One of those two is my best guess at what's going to happen to Tether and why the exchanges, along with everybody else, are all going to be clamoring for XRP all at the same time to drive the price to 3 or 4 digits. That's my thesis. Again, take it with a grain of salt. This is, I've been in this asset class 6 years at this point. I think I have a good grasp on it. I think I have a decent understanding of macroeconomics. There's a lot of people that say I'm crazy and that this will never happen, and I'm completely wrong. Cool. I got the balls to come out here and put my name on it and, tell you guys about it. So I don't know what their theory is, but I haven't seen anybody else come out and talk about this for anywhere near as long as what I have. So, oh no, my TV's done messed up back there. What's going on? Let me try this. How about now, brown cow? There we go. I can see that it's got sound now. Okay. Again, appreciate you, Mr. Legacy, or sorry, Honest Aim, for the kind words. It was good to see you guys the other night. Excited to see everybody in Austin in just a few weeks here. We got Chomp Master. He says, Jake the Snake, chomp chomp. Yo, quick one. X money and X payments using XRP. Wink, wink. You hinted at it on the past live and kept it cryptic. Thanks for saving the economy. Hi to the tea lady. Definitely not me saving the economy. Look, I've been very blessed to be in certain rooms and have conversations with other people to be able to kind of piece this together from just a regular guy's standpoint. And I come on here and share it with y'all. And I appreciate y'all finding it valuable. But yeah, Cross River is a big deal. They've been a Ripple partner for a long time, and for X Money to choose them to be able to transmit the payments on their platform is pretty telling. I do think that Elon will mention XRP in the not too distant future in a good light. I don't know if that'll be pre or post price appreciation, but I do think he will be talking about it. So we'll have to see how much longer that takes. All right, we're not quite an hour in yet. We'll go ahead and continue to scroll through. We got XRP Diamond Hand. They say, hey, Jake, couple questions. One, say the reverse carry trade happens. Is it possible for XRP to settle everything before institutional adoption and drop rates back down? Is it possible for XRP to settle everything before institutional adoption? No. And drop rates back down. I don't know. Well, I'm probably going to butcher this. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. So let me go on to part 2 and maybe it'll make sense for part 1. They say when Japan raises rates and other countries do too, we lose the differential to cause a reverse carry trade. When Japan raises rates and other countries do too, do we lose? No, because people are going to chase yield, and they want to do that in a safe way, especially if risk-on assets are moving down. So if you have a huge move down in stocks, people are going to be scared to invest their money there, and they're going to be looking for safe haven stuff. They're going to run to treasuries and other things that are going up at that time. I think XRP will be going up at that time. And so, and there'll be, if you're able to park your money and earn 5, 6, 7% in a bond, people are happy to do that. People are happy to park their money in a savings account or a bond or CD and make 5, 6, 7, 8% on it. It's when it's lower than that that people really don't want to do it, because it's not worth locking up your money for that little of a return, especially when you can put it in stocks or some other vehicle and generate, a greater return, even if there's a little more risk. And so people weigh that out, right? So as bond yields rise and interest rates rise, you'll see people move to risk off and more people rotate into bonds, which will stabilize the bond market, which will be good. But multiple countries raising their interest rates just exacerbates that. It's a flight to safety. And they need to do that to be able to offset the inflation in their economies that we're currently seeing from energy costs alongside the amount of money that's sloshing around. And they'll have to raise interest rates probably even more when the velocity of money picks up. So until they lower the M2 money supply that's out there. So there's 2 things that cause inflation in an economy, and it's an equation, and it's M2 money supply, or how much money is moving around the economy, and the velocity of that money. So how fast money is exchanging hands between people. When they move on to blockchain, the velocity of money is going to pick up substantially. And so they would be able to maintain higher interest rates with the velocity of money moving faster through the economy, which is good for everybody, really, because then you're able to park your money at a bank or at a bond or something safe and earn 5 to 8, 10% on your money very safely. People like to do that. The only time that they're not willing to do that is when treasury rates are like 0, and then everybody rolls their money into the stock market because that's the only place you can get any return, right? But if you have a stable economy, you should be able to maintain 5 or 6% interest rates pretty easily if you have real economic growth and GDP is going up, which we're going to have with AI and the implementation of all the other stuff that we got going on right now, blockchain, other progressive technologies. So I think we're going to move into a boom, another like 4th industrial revolution that's very tech enabled and driven that way. And I think a lot of the constraints that we've had for global GDP being per capita or human output is going to move to AI agents and humanoid robots. And I know all this sounds sci-fi, okay? But these are realistic things that should come to market in the next 2 to 5 years, maybe sooner, depending on how fast things continue to progress. And so really that uncaps GDP, and we'll be able to maintain higher interest rates. I think it'll be good for everybody. So I'm not sure if that exactly answered your question or not. But I do think XRP will end up settling everything. I just don't, I think it's going to require institutional adoption for that to happen, and significantly higher price. Brianna, or Brina, Kingsford. Hey, ma'am. She says, thanks for all that you do. It's definitely an exciting time to be an XRP holder. I was just hoping to get your thoughts on Aerodrome Finance. Not something I've heard of, but we'll give it a Google right now. Let's see here. Aerodrome, A-R-O, Drone Finance. There it is. Let's see what it says. There's a token. Okay, so Arrow is the name of the token. Doesn't tell me a whole lot about it on CoinMarketCap. I'm going to go to their website. It's a swap deposit, takes to the skis. Dashboard. You can connect Coinbase wallet, Binance wallet. It looks like a swap or a DEX, kind of like Uniswap for Ethereum-based assets or EVM-based assets. It looks cool. Looks like they're paying something on their token. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably not something that I guess they're launching liquidity pools for different networks too on here. I'd have to understand more to really give you an informed opinion on it. I mean, this is just my visceral reaction looking at it here. But I mean, it might be worth looking into. I mean, a couple of these pools are paying out crazy returns. There's one that's paying 43%. Anything that has those type of, I mean, this is a 9% pool, which is wrapped ETH and USDC. Cool. Like I could see how that works. But the fee for the 9% is 6%. So you're only going to make 3% putting your money in this pool. That's probably sustainable, right? But if you're looking at, like, there's another one that's CL 100. It's 56% on the fee, but they have 1200% return. I don't know what they're doing to generate that type of return. I don't want to be involved with it. It's great, sounds awesome, until you lose all your money that you put in there. So again, these are DeFi protocols and pools here that are being launched on Aerodrome. I'm sure that their token is probably required to be able to issue a pool or wrap to ETH or do something here. Again, I'm uninformed, and so this is just a visceral response to it. Looks interesting, but it's probably not something that I'm going to be participating in anytime soon. We got John. He says XRP is currently classified as a tier 1 asset, not classified as a tier 1 asset. If the BIS does not make it so because use of strict criteria, would it make a difference in price appreciation? I think that price appreciation causes them to underwrite the risk at 0. So until it's a high price, I don't think that they're going to list it as that. If there's volatility, if there's not stability in the token, if there's not market volume at scale globally backing the token effectively, like what's going to back XRP's price after they drive the supply shock to push it there is global markets and settlement of those global markets. So you can imagine, like, what if something was backed by the email protocol? How many people send an email every single day? I send hundreds of emails every day. Imagine the amount of payments that are sent every single day. That's not going to stop or slow down, or especially if there's a unified ledger that connects it all and keeps it from being messed up or frozen or sanctioned or any of that. And so it's a different paradigm than people have thought about before. I mean, gold's a tier 1 asset. U.S. Treasuries are a tier 1 asset. U.S. Treasuries has counterparty risk. The U.S. has defaulted twice in our history. Gold doesn't really have a counterparty risk, but the risk is that there could be somebody that finds a huge deposit of gold that we didn't know existed, or they start mining gold off of asteroids, which is what Elon Musk wants to do. Either one of those things could cause huge problems in the gold market and it to lose a lot of value in a very short period of time. XRP has a finite amount. There can never be more issued. The origin account's been black holed. It can't be frozen. It can't be, I mean, I guess you could sanction the network if you wanted to, just like they did Tornado Cash, and like I think they might do Tether. But if the government is using it to be able to transact value, they're not going to do that, right? If everybody's agreed that they're going to adopt it and use this protocol, just like the email protocol, to move data packets, but instead they're moving money, it's effectively the least risky thing in the world. So that's why I think the BIS will designate it as a tier 1 asset. But that's going to require actual usage and adoption and price appreciation far beyond what it sits at right now. We got Michael. He says, Jake, thank you. I heard Japan makes the announcement on rates on the 18th. So they do have a meeting on the 18th. We'll see if they can kick the can that far. I don't know that they're going to be able to. T. Jensen says, is there another alternative way to pay the fees when our digital assets are with custody with TPP if the yield product is not up and running and price appreciation happens? We're working on this. I would love to pay, like, you get into conflicts of interest. So, like, just full transparency, we could do a lending product where people could borrow against their crypto and we could issue a line of credit. Are we incentivized to do that and then double dip on interest plus, the AUM fees? Like, probably. So I'm not a big fan of that. Anything where it looks disingenuous or like self-serving, not a big fan of. So, we're charging fair fees, I think, for the service that we're providing. Obviously, I want the yield product just as bad as anybody else does, believe me. Like, probably more than anybody else does, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, it's not within my control. We have other partners and other people that we're working with in order to be able to facilitate it. And it's a multi-party deal. It's not like it's just one other party either. So, with all that being said, I don't really have a way other than funding a cash account. What I've seen some people do is, let's say you had 100,000 XRP with us. They'll just buy an extra 2,000 XRP and put it in their account. And then as the price appreciates, their fees are going to come down as a percentage of what the assets are over there. So under 5 million is 2%. Anything over 5 million drops to 50 bips. Anything over 10 million drops to 40 bips. So if you put an extra 2%, let's say you bought an extra 2% of whatever you have and just sat it over there at scale, after price appreciation, that's literally 5 years worth of fees for buying an extra 2% of XRP today. And it's at least a year's worth of fees that you're covering, because the concern is price appreciates and you don't have the cash to be able to cover, the cost. Right? Like, that's a fair deal. Like, if your assets move to 10, 20, $30 million and now you're paying, 120 grand a month on AUM fees because you got $30 million, or I'd be per year. So it wouldn't be like 10 grand a month. Not everybody's got 10 grand a month for those services, right? So what I've done and what I've seen other people do is they've just bought an extra 2% XRP and put it over there. And that's the bag that they're using to be able to make sure that they're covering all the costs. It's kind of like insurance, right? Like, you pay your car insurance every month. This is a way to make sure that your car insurance is covered for the next 5 years, and we'll have a yield product by then, right? Ideally, it's, weeks, not months at this point. So, but that would move with the appreciation of your XRP and be able to cover any, gap there might be between now and when we have the yield product. And again, you can always wire money over and do it that way. Bryn says, just here for the tea lady. She needs a horse before price appreciation, but hey, I'm just a girl on the internet. We'll see what she says. We just bought her a new saddle. Okay. And she's got a new rig and all kinds of stuff out there. She says, hell yeah. We'll see about a new horse. It's the problem is here. We'll just go down this rabbit hole for you guys for a second here. My wife is an equestrian. She's ridden horses since she was about 7 years old. She is much older than that now. I won't say how old she is. And she's been doing equestrian drill team for about 20, 25 years. So if you don't know what that is, the best way I can describe it to somebody that has no idea about equestrian sports is synchronized swimming on horseback. Okay, so everybody's seen synchronized swimmers. They get out in the pool, they do patterns, they swim in and around one another. These ladies do that on horseback. They do patterns in the arena. They put on halftime shows. They post the pivots at rodeos. For a horse to be able to perform in that environment at a high level requires a lot of things. Okay, so they have to be able to be close in proximity to other horses that are running. They need to be able to carry a flag. They often wear costumes and do theme drills and stuff. So, like, if the horse is weirded out about like a bag flapping in the wind, which is scary to a horse, by the way, it's very scary. Or if something rubbing over their butt causes them to buck or have issues, it's a no-go, right? They need to be sound. My wife likes bay quarter horses. They can be a paint, they can have stockings in a blaze face. So if you know one that, runs a good pole pattern and has done like polo or something else, in and around other horses, she's looking for something that's somewhere between 7 and 14 years old, depending on, its pedigree. She'd like it to have papers. Anyway, my point with this is it's a needle in a haystack. Okay. Like, there's not a whole lot of horses on the market. What'd you say? Brown sound and low to the ground. Yeah, there you go. Well, she's also doesn't want it to be over 15 hands either, because she's a shorter lady. So again, needle in a haystack. There's not a whole lot of them out there that qualify or meet the criteria required for what she's doing. So with that being said, it's difficult, and you have to have the money right then to be able to buy them too. Anyway, so we're working on it. We'll get her one, but what she's got right now is a good horse. Like, and I try to tell her this all the time. She's probably traded 25 or 30 horses since we've been together. And the horse that she's riding right now is probably in the top 3 that I think since I've been around she has had. So she's sound, knock on wood, which is the number one thing, because most horses do not stay sound. Anyway, that was my equestrian rant. We'll get back to the questions that you guys have. Chris says, are you going to buy any Algorand in the near future? I am not. I am not going to buy any Algorand in the near future. It's not to say that I don't think Algorand's a great project, because I do. I actually, one of our partners in one of the companies we have was an early stage investor in Algorand. They are, it's a great project. I think that, third world nations will probably move a lot of value over that network. I think it's going to be adopted at scale globally. It'll be part of the infrastructure of the Megazord. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Megazord or not, but it's Algorand, IOTA, HBAR, XRP, XDC, and XLM, all like stuck together as the Megazord. I don't know if y'all watch Power Rangers or not. I did. I watched a lot of Power Rangers when I was a kid. All right, we got Silas. They say oil in yen skyrocketed to 18,000, making it up 60% in the last 8 days. Today, it's down to under 14K. Was the spike enough for the reverse carry trade to still be in play? Will the Bank of Japan raise interest rates? Thanks. So again, I knew there'd be a lot of questions on this tonight, but I'll reiterate it again because I've seen RJ over here. Shout out to RJ. We need to go dancing and play some golf, my dude. It's been a while since I've seen you. Hope you're doing well. So with the reverse carry trade, yeah, I still think it's going to play out. Like I said, if you guys watched the show last Wednesday, I talked about 12.5 or 13,000 yen to barrel of oil. And we're still above that. We're at 13.2. I can look at it live right now. and we're at, come on, there it is. We're back up at 13.7. Ooh, she's starting to move. Yeah, here, I'm just going to pull this up for you guys. Share screen. We'll do it again. Here it is. So, I mean, since I've been on here, we're up 500 yen per barrel. You see this parabola forming here at the bottom of this, looking like it's going to move to the upside again. I don't know how far to the upside it's going to move, but if we do see this continue to go up here, the Bank of Japan, I think there was some manipulation here to get this back down and kind of push it and suppress it. But to see it start to move again like this, maybe there's some other news out there that I'm not aware of. Maybe there was another attack on the Strait or in Iran, and that's what's causing that to happen. So anyway, I still think that the reverse carry trade is very much in play. I think the Bank of Japan is going to have to come out and react to this and raise interest rates. And again, this is the perfect scapegoat for them. They can blame it on Trump. They can blame it on Iran. They can blame it on, the conflict that's going on over there. And the inflation that they're seeing in their economy is, a byproduct of that. And this gives them the full ability to move without being, the cause of the reverse carry trade unwinding and everybody in the world being mad at them. Kryptonium 9 says, let's say it doesn't play out with the Strait being closed and the reverse carry trade. What's plan B? What forces price appreciation? All right, well, let's play it out, because I did this in the mastermind earlier when people asked the same question. They don't raise interest rates. Their economy collapses under the pressure of the inflation. They can't service their debt. They have to print into infinity. They collapse the yen, which starts a slow collapse of the global economy. They are the crux of where everybody else owes money right now. So if they go under, all of those other people, their loans go under. They're not forgiven. Like they're going to call all of those loans. Okay, so that's a global credit call either way. Doesn't really matter which direction this goes. If they don't have a way to be able to jumpstart the economy and provide liquidity when all this goes down, or a way to stabilize the bond market, markets collapse globally within days. It's not like oh, well, we'll figure something else out. Like, I do not know how to impress upon you how catastrophic this event is either direction when it goes, if this is not the outcome. There will be no pension fund, there will be no retirement, there will be no stock market, everything would seize up. The entire financial economy as you know it would collapse in less than a week. So plan B doesn't exist. There is no plan B. They've plan B'd it all the way until now. The only plan that is possible at this point is to use a digital asset to be able to offset the debt in economies by starting to leverage it for global transactions. And then it's a positive feedback loop. It starts going the other way. Right now, we're spiraling down the drain. If they start moving everything on chain and all the transactions start moving on chain and the asset that's moving that appreciates in value and it's on their balance sheets, it's a positive flywheel to pull us out of this debt spiral that we're in. Otherwise, we just collapse under the weight of it. And we're there. Like this is as much as debt as they can take out. There have been multiple economies that have collapsed at about 130% of GDP. That's where things start to get wonky. Japan's at 166. The US government's about 132, 133. We're right at the edge, the razor's edge of where the debt-based system starts to collapse economies because you can't service the debt yourself. And then you find yourself in a catch-22 position like the Bank of Japan, where you have to raise interest rates because of the inflation in your economy, but you need to print more money to be able to support the debt and refinance it later on. And eventually you run out of rope. You hang yourself. So I know everybody's like, well, what's plan B, or what if this, or what if that? If this doesn't work, excuse my French, but we're fucked. Like, that is how bad this is going to be. I don't normally curse on here, but like, that is the level of bad things that are going to happen. So this is it. Like, XRP is what saves the day, or we're SOL. So I wish I had a better answer for plan B, but it is plan A or nothing, really. Rick Johnson, he says, Verson has always warned against institutional custody. Today, without prompt, he said that does not apply to Jake Claver. I trust him. I agree with him on almost everything. Many thanks. Many thousands of us agree. We love Verson, right? Like, him and I have had our differences in the past. We worked through those. We're good. And to his point, institutional custody is not equal. Okay, the level of institutional custody that we provide, I put out a whole video on this. But there's 5 criteria. They have financial licenses. There's insurance, segregated, bankruptcy remote, and the infrastructure that they provide has it's FIPS compliant here in the U.S. That's what allows them to be a qualified custodian. They use hardware security modules, which are distributed globally in level 4 facilities, and that's how they hold the shards of the key, right? MPC technology, which is what Fireblocks and Copper and a lot of these other ones run on, it's a hot wallet, and it doesn't meet the FIPS standards here in the U.S. for qualified custodians. Anchorage actually, used Copper and made a derivative of it using HSMs in order to be able to meet the compliance requirements. Same thing with BNY Mellon. They've used Fireblocks and they have a derivative of it that has HSMs. So that's what you'll see for real institutional custody. If somebody just using, white labeling Fireblocks, they can call it institutional custody, and it's better than most exchanges. So I'm not saying it's bad. Okay. I'm just saying that it doesn't meet this, like, the level of the criteria that we have, or the bar that we've set for institutional custody for digital wealth partners. So, again, just my 2 cents. And again, I appreciate Verson saying that. Shout out to him and Black Swan Capitalist. If you guys don't follow their channel, you should absolutely go watch it. They do a lot of great content over there, and I'll continue to support them and appreciate them doing the same. I haven't mentioned this because we really haven't talked about LLCs, but we've seen a lot of people, again, being proactive and taking advantage of the deal that we're running right now for at least $100,000 in digital assets. If you have at least $100,000 in crypto and you want to work with digital wealth partners, we would love to work with you. A lot of the time we see people set up an LLC before they get started with us. You can work with us, or you can set it up on your own, up to you. But to manage their digital assets, get creditor protection, get the anonymity, get the tax benefits that come along with it. And if you want to work with us, you just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, use the code 50OFF50OFFDAG-LLC, and they get you everything end to end for the LLC to be able to manage your digital assets and get those benefits. Woody, he says, hey, legend, what's up, dude? Thank you to the tea lady. Please touch on the gift tax. I'm thinking about keeping a fun bag, but not cashing it in until much higher prices, and possibly no gains tax. Worried if change mind and want to add to the LLC. Is it possible? Carbon One member. So yeah, you could still add it to the LLC later on. That's not a problem. You can always add additional capital contributions to the corporation. Those just need to be documented. If you're working with Laughlin, like we do, so we maintain the corporate veil, they'll walk you through what that looks like to be able to make those contributions, and you just do a written action or written consent. It's pretty simple. You just need to keep a ledger of that, either on blockchain or a physical ledger that you document, or spreadsheet. Spreadsheets work great too. But yeah, you can add it at any time. It's not like you can't. I don't know what benefit it would have to hold assets outside of your LLC or a trust. The LLC is going to give you full control over those assets, and it has equity units. You're going to get creditor protection, and as long as you maintain the corporate veil, I mean, you get creditor protection. So you rear end somebody or something bad happens to you, if you still have those assets in your personal name, hell, your kid rear ends somebody, right? I rear ended a lot of people early on in my driving career, and definitely could have got sued and didn't, luckily. But you know, if you have money, people figure out ways to sue you. So if those assets aren't protected and they come after you in a lawsuit and they have emotional damage or something bad, which might be justified, by the way. I'm not saying that, you know, civil lawsuits or emotional damages or any of those things aren't justified, because sometimes they are. But, you know, when your insurance won't cover it, they're probably going to come after you personally for those losses. And they could come after those assets. So personally, I would just keep my fund bag in a separate wallet in my LLC. Maybe you keep it out of institutional custody and you sell it or do something else with it. You could stake it. You could play in DeFi, do some other things. But if you wanted to move it into your trust, so that's the gift tax. So you talked about the gift tax. Lifetime gift tax exemption here in the US is $30 million between you and your spouse. It's almost 15 million. Actually, it is 15 million per person this year in 2026. It was 13.99 million last year. So you get up to 30 million between you and your spouse that you can gift out of your taxable estate. And you might say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, you would probably want to gift things when it was lower in cost basis so that you can maintain a lot of your lifetime gift tax in case you want to do things later. So if you had $2, $3, $5, $10 million in crypto right now, you might gift a large majority out of your taxable estate into the trust, so that you only take out a portion of your lifetime gift tax, and then those assets grow inside the trust, outside of your estate, your taxable estate, for when you pass, and then the trust will pass them to the beneficiaries like you would want them to. Actually, I had a conversation with another gentleman just today. He talked about an irrevocable trust, and he was trying to get through, think through this. And I said, well, I have a portion of my assets in an LLC, and I have the other portion in an irrevocable trust. And he said, well, is it underneath that, or is like, how are they connected? And I'm like, they're not connected. I've already gifted a portion of it out of my taxable estate into the irrevocable trust. And for me, I'm younger, so I did like a 50-50 split, because I think, half of what I got's probably more than enough to have a lot of fun with and do a bunch of things. And I want the creditor protection that comes along with an LLC, and I want the creditor protection that comes along with the trust. But if something were to happen and I really mess it up, the trust is still there, and my kids, great-grandkids, great-great-grandkids are still going to be able to benefit from all that. So again, not legal advice. I would go talk to an estate planner, tax attorney. They're going to be able to give you specific expertise based on your position and your long-term goals and the outcome that you're wanting. But if you don't gift it out of your taxable estate, and here's the other thing, it can be in the trust and not gifted out of your taxable estate. So if you didn't complete the gift, you can get creditor protection and probate protection. You're just not going to get, the tax benefit that you work through if you do the other. And again, you want to work with an estate planner to know what you're doing.
With the super chat last week about the NDAs, wanted me to remind you about it.
What was it?
About you talking about your NDAs.
I'm confused.
Me too.
Okay.
That we can't talk about NDAs because that's what they are.
Yeah, for those that don't know what an NDA is, it's a non-disclosure agreement. It means you don't talk about what you and the other party are doing. So we have plenty of NDAs. I try to navigate that and talk about things around the NDA, but not specifically what we're doing with counterparties or who they are. So I can't tell you what the NDA is about because there's an NDA if you ask me about an NDA. Anyway, let's see here. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't see anything from Living Legacy, so we're just going to keep running through the chat. We're already an hour in here, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom If you wouldn't mind, no more super chats. If you haven't super chatted yet, I don't want you to waste the money. I'm going to try to get all the ones that we have tonight. If I don't get to it again, please just email it over, info@beyondbroke.com or info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Ricky Smith. I went to elementary school with a Ricky Smith. She was dark complected, and I haven't seen her in 15 years, 16 years. I don't know if it's the same Ricky Smith or not. If XRP succeeds in becoming a global liquidity bridge, what does the financial world actually look like 10 years from now for a small holder, 2 to 3K? So if you only had 2 or 3,000 XRP, imagine having 2 or 3,000 Bitcoin. That's what it'll look like, in my opinion, right? So XRP at $100,000, even 2 or 3,000 of them. I mean, you're looking at you're a billionaire. Now, what is a billionaire in 10 years? I don't know. I don't know how wealthy most people are going to be at that point. I don't know what the monetary value of the dollar is. I think you're going to be just fine, though. If you're a billionaire by any means, I think that's always still going to be doing pretty well. And I know how absurd that sounds, right? So people are going to come at me sideways on this, and that's fine. But you can just do the math. Like, again, we'll just handy dandy calculator like Blue's Clues here. We've got, we'll call it on the low end. You've got 2,000 XRP times $100,000 a piece. That's $200 million. So you're not a billionaire. I was wrong about that. But $200 million. Again, I think you're going to be doing just fine, especially if we get the dollar, short up. And I think they will this year with the 250th anniversary. I think they're going to back it with gold and like reform the entire financial system. And we'll probably have a deflationary economy for a period of time where things actually get cheaper. You're $200 or $300 million will go a long way. Again, like multi-generational wealth. And I know, again, take it with a grain of salt. You said 10 years. So that's the time frame I'm operating on. So just hang on, hang out, and be patient. Zay the Rich Kid says, I don't know if it's the same Z, but if it is, what's up, dude? Hope you're doing good. He says, do you think XRP are close to break out this cycle, or are we still waiting on major catalyst? I think both. I think we're still waiting on major catalyst, and I do think that those are right around the corner. Sean Free Sample says, Jake, what if all these last few days / hours was a stress test on the system, identifying the choke points and where the system will break and what's needed to fix it before it can happen? Sure. I could see that. Boomer Sooner. Good to see you. Said, I'm making a deal. I'll source the best horse for XRP. Jokes aside, my dad was an AQHA photographer for over 25 years. Wow. He does private ranch shoots and design ads for magazines. He's in OQHA, HOF. You need a good horse. We know the people. Okay. Well, my wife would be interested. I'm sure we'd like to get her something nice at some point. She's always ridden decent horses. I will say decent. She would say otherwise. But we would like to get her something nice at some point, especially post price appreciation. The person, she says deal. So we'll reach out, just email us, like I said, info@digitalfamilyoffice.io or info@beyondbroke.com. We'll get connected. We'll see what we can do. Work a deal on the horse. I don't know if it'll be an XRP though. Post moon XRP for sure, but pre-moon, that's a really expensive horse. U.S. Marine Corps 0311 Luke says, Jake, thanks for the wisdom. Is there a possibility that if Iran resolves quickly and Japanese oil reserves last, they could avoid an unwind completely? I think the damage is already done at this point. I could be wrong. Again, I'm just the crazy guy on the internet over here. But I think that this has been in the works for a long time. And I don't know why they would let this crisis go to waste. You never let a good crisis go to waste. That's a Hillary Clinton quote, if you didn't know. Smoke Eater says, Jake, we don't need USD JPY to move for the don't we need the USD to JPY to move for the Bank of Japan to act? It seems like the VIX was at 35 and oil was at 17K, but currency was pinned. Cabal intervention? You know, man, I don't know if I want to call it the cabal, but to see what happened to oil get smashed back down and yield curve control step in on the bond yield there in Japan, there's some manipulation going on there. Paper contracts, any way that they could, they've smashed this back down. We've started to see oil level off here. It's spiked up and looks like it's hit a ceiling at around 13.7. But again, this is over the amount that I thought was required for them to have to move. I thought around 12.5, 1300 was enough inflation in their economy. And if you look at it over the last 14 days here, is that right? It says we're up 16.72%. You know, I said somewhere between 15 and 25% is really what we needed for them to have to start moving on stuff. Because they're walking on a razor's edge. They already have a bunch of inflation in their economy. And so for this to kind of put it over it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back is how I view it. So, you know, I think they can walk this edge a little bit longer, but I don't think it's that much longer. Doja Blues 4282 says, hey, Jake, since you were talking about Tether, Rev Collins came out with a stablecoin 2.0 ticker symbol stable. Any thoughts? Haven't seen that one. Let's give it a Google here. STBL coin. I mean, I like stable. This is definitely not a stable coin though. It is trading at 3 cents. Yeah. Not something that I'm going to be investing in. I don't see that it's a stable coin. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one though. What'd you say? Yeah, STBL. Yeah, it's. I mean, it trades on MEXC. Don't know enough about it to be able to give you a good determination of if it's something that's going to be around or not. It's listed on Binance and MEXC. It's got liquidity pairs. It looks like it's live on Kraken. I mean, there's a lot of exchanges that have listed it, but for it to still be 3 cents with that many exchanges listing it doesn't really bode well for it. It's also on CoinGecko, which is really just what tells you the current price. It's not an actual exchange. It's kind of like CoinMarketCap. Let's see what their Twitter looks like. Powering the next era of programmable finance, enabling ecosystem-specific stablecoins, ESS, through money as a service. It seems like they're a competitor to Ripple. I don't think they're going to win that one. I think Ripple's stablecoin deployment for institutional treasury products and enterprises is probably going to beat them out. So not something I'm going to really be looking at, but, you know, might be a flyer. Again, happy to miss things. I think people are going to make money on a ton of stuff that I mean, there's already been a lot of things that I wasn't invested in that people made a ton of money on. So that could be another one. This gentleman says, hey, Jake, I hope you're well. As oil price spiked up to 115 and then dropped back in a day to 85 range, what's your thoughts on the Bank of Japan interest rate and the reverse carry trade? Also, how high you think XRP price will go before Clarity Act? Can you give a range? Thanks, bro. Depends on the level of implementation and the supply shock. I've kind of gone over the reverse carry trade and my thoughts on oil and all of that multiple times this evening, which I knew I would. I know that's going to be the main question people ask. Still think it's in play. I still think that we could see higher oil prices. Just depends on the conflict there in the Middle East, how long it extends for, if there's, full closure of the strait. I saw something that came out earlier that said that they would allow anybody that shunned Israel and the U.S. to pass through the strait, but anybody else would be sunk. Trump's talking about, taking over the strait somehow. We'll just have to see how things play out. But I'm confident that this is all orchestrated to get the result that we're looking for. And I do think that will happen before the Clarity Act. I think that it might be right before. So, other people are like, well, it happened because of the clarity. I think you're going to see price move substantially before we actually see Congress pass that. Okay. So that's my claim. Now, is it minutes before? Is it hours before? Is it days before? Is it weeks before? I don't know. Okay. But I think it'll be before. Even if it's minutes before, I think it'll be before. And I think that, to be able to facilitate back-end settlement of the stock market, which is what I think they're going to need it for, $100 to $1,000 a piece. That's the range. Smoke Eater. We already went over this one. Did that one. It moved me down in the chat for once. Usually it moves me up in the chat, but it moved me down this time. We got Brent. He says, hey, Jake, with Ripple's amendment to have their own interest product with lending to be competing with yours. So Ripple is never going to be consumer facing. I know a lot of people want that. People think, oh, Ripple's a bank. I'll just be able to hold my XRP there. Not going to happen. It's never going to happen. They are never going to be one-to-many. They're going to be institutional enterprise grade. They're going to work with large treasuries, corporations, enterprises, institutions. That is their nexus. They're never going to provide the XRP army with direct ability to work with Ripple. Now, they might work with a partner as a conduit to be able to access their products. But I don't think that they will be offering that directly to you. So take that as you will, and we'll see, what options are out there in the near future. Mike, he says, instead of BlackRock ETF, could it be an announcement of them tokenizing on the XRPL, or perhaps both an ETF and tokenization announcement on the XRPL? I mean, at the World Economic Forum, Larry Fink was pretty specific that he thinks that there's going to be one unified ledger that everything's going to be issued on. I don't know why I would say that if it was going to be multi-chain in the future. I'm hopeful for multi-chain. I think that there's a lot of functionality across other blockchains and infrastructure that do things better than the XRPL in certain aspects. I think it'll all just settle back to the XRPL. So, quite possible. That would drive a lot of FOMO either direction. But they need the ETF to be able to rotate liquidity from the Bitcoin ETF and other products on the market into XRP to be able to push the price to where they need it to go. So there's a lot of people that are like, well, why don't BlackRock just buy all the XRP and drive the price up? The liquidity has to rotate from somewhere else. They can't just sell off clients' assets. The clients themselves have to do that. Like their advisors can say, hey, we think we should transfer you into this product. What do you think? Then they can do that. Or they can move their own funds that they manage into those products. But those products have to be liquid and on the market and tradable in order to be able to do that. And right now you can't have a direct ownership of XRP by an institution. They could put it on their balance sheet, I guess, and they probably already have some on their balance sheet. But again, like there's economies of scale that happen when you have access to the market's liquidity versus your own liquidity. So I don't think I've given this exact speech, but I've talked about it before. This is the reason that I believe, like, hardcore, that we will see a BlackRock ETF, because it's the only mechanism by which they can really rotate the liquidity they need to into the asset. We've got the Nashville event coming up. See you guys on St. Patty's Day. If you are there in the mastermind, we got over 700 people coming to that event. Excited about that. If you want to be part of that community, we would love to have you there. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code right up here at the top, beyondbroke, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2. And we are going to lock it down on the other side of a $10 XRP. It will be invite only, and it'll be thousands of dollars for any new people coming into the group there, but you are grandfathered in at the prices we have today if you want to go ahead and start that. So again, it's month to month, no contract. We have over 16,000 people that are there every single month that pay to be in that community. So if that tells you anything about the value that we provide there, I think it's pretty good. It's definitely more value than I've received in any other mastermind that I've been a part of. So if you want to go check it out, we'd love to have you. Again, just beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar. How much is the second month? It depends on the tier that you choose. So we have social, which is $25 a month. We have carbon 1 that's $100 a month. We have carbon 2 that's $250 a month, and then we have an invite only that's carbon 3 that's $1,000 a month. You can't do carbon 3 unless you've been in carbon 2 for an extended period of time. We've got 2,500. Raphael, he says, hey, Jake, do you think Clarity will pass this month? I think it's highly probable. With Patrick Witt saying that it would pass by Easter, and with Brad Garlinghouse saying that it would pass by the end of April, I mean, that really only gives us somewhere between 30 and 60 days. Could it push into April? Sure. Is it going to happen this month? It definitely could. I'm probably 50-50 on this month, if that makes sense. And then I'm probably like 90% that it's by the end of April. And if we don't get it by the end of April, I don't know that it's going to happen this year. So I'm 10% on, like, maybe it won't even happen, but 50% for next 30 days, and then 90% in the next 60 days. And again, that's just based on other people that I hold in a high regard and what they've said. It's not up to them, though. It's up to Congress. It's up to, the government. And we know how the government is. So let's see how things play out. That's why I'm 10% like, I don't even know. Anthony says, once XRP goes over $300, do you see it ever dropping in price again? I don't. I think it'll be a high stable value because of the volume moving over the network at that point, and it'll be maintained at a high stable value. On the moves, they say, thanks for being great. Oh, thanks for being a great shepherd. I appreciate that, man. So before I read the rest of this question, we did like a brand analysis for stuff, and they walked through what are you, what do you want to be, how do you want to be perceived by the public, blah blah blah. And the two things that really kind of stuck out to me were like sage or a shepherd, somebody that's a steward, somebody that helps other people make good decisions and provides value and like strategic advice, wisdom, right? So I try to like embody that when I'm on here and really in my whole life. But you're not like, I'm the same person on here as I am in person. If you ever meet me, I don't know how to be any different than I am. But anyway, that's interesting. You use that verbiage, and I appreciate the kind words. Hope to get the book signed. If you are in Vegas, I will be in Vegas. We will have a mastermind event there in Vegas. So if you're part of that, it'll probably be the Wednesday night. We'll get you guys info on that. I got a full magazine full of questions. I can't wait for the fire at you. Special shout out to Max. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you there in Vegas. And obviously, we'll be chopping it up about XRP and hopefully reminiscing on days like today when XRP was a low price, talking about the good old days when you could buy it cheap in comparison to where it's at there in Vegas. Got a bunch of them strung together here. We did this one for Woody. We've got Roughnet. They say, I keep being told, don't keep your crypto anywhere but a hard wallet due to if systems get hacked, cyber attacks, blah, blah, blah. It would be frozen everywhere else. What does that look like for DWP? Thanks. So we went over the risk last time, but I'll reiterate this again. So if Anchorage is hacked, you have a whitelisted wallet. The only place that they can send that crypto back to is your cold wallet. Like, you're the only person that whitelists whatever wallet you're going to be able to send to. It's a 24-hour release, so that's their SLA. It most of the time happens much faster than that. Okay. But there's a lot of security protocols and checks before we dole it back out, even to that whitelisted wallet. We don't want you to be under duress. We don't want you to be in a position where somebody's going to take it from you if we send it back there. So we'll call and ask some questions, which kind of like, it's kind of a pain in the ass. It's kind of like the bank when you want to send a wire or do something. They're like, well, what's this for? And they call you. But it's also at the same time, like, if somebody did hack your account and they were trying to like take your stuff, you're probably glad that they're doing that. So that's kind of what we do. It's a multi-sig process to remove the assets, but we can send them back at any time whenever you want them. We'll call and verify that it's you and make sure that we're good and you're not, being held at gunpoint or something. And then, we'll send it back. And like I said, even if it's hacked somehow, the only place they can send it back to is your own cold wallet. Now I will talk about this though. Let's say Anchorage is bankruptcy remote. So what does that actually mean? You are never a creditor of Anchorage. They have a separate entity from their exchange and their brokerage desk and all the other operations that they do. That's the custody aspect. It's Anchorage Digital. If they had a bankruptcy, they would still have to go through bankruptcy. They would have to go through a restructuring, but your assets would never be taken. They're always yours. This is an FBO account in your name at that institutional custodian. But you wouldn't have access to those assets until after the bankruptcy proceedings were over. They would be held in that account. So that kind of sucks. That's the best we got right now. We're working on solutions with other people that might be relief of stay. So what does that mean? Well, relief of stay is where another trust bank would step in same day and there would be continuity to your account. So you would never miss a beat, even if, whatever the large bank was went out of business. That's relief of stay versus bankruptcy remote. And we want to be able to distribute these assets across multiple custodians. So that's something we're working on over the next 12 months to be able to diversify risk across multiple custodians that all have the credentials and the standards that we have for institutional custody. So, again, I don't think there's one perfect solution, right? If you're holding it on a cold wallet, you don't have any counterparty risk, but their risk is you make a bad mistake and get phished or SIM swapped or your computer's compromised or there's malware or something else bad happens, right? So we see a lot of our clients hold some of their assets on the cold wallet, some of their assets on an exchange or brokerage, and then, the larger portion of their assets, they tend to hold with us just because of the assurances that we provide and the insurance and all the other stuff. And again, there's insurance up to $100 million if you were hacked and somehow the assets were taken from you. But the reason they're able to underwrite that risk to the level that they are from Lloyd's of London is, one, the security protocol at Anchorage is extremely robust. BlackRock keeps their assets there. So if that tells you anything about how secure they are. And then separate of that, the only place they can send it back to is your own cold wallet that you listed. So like losses are probably not going to happen. Not to say they can't happen, but highly unlikely, right? And that's why they're able to underwrite the risk the way that they are and insure it up to $100 million. Kobe T. Cavoodles. Probably butchered that. They say, hey, Jake, love from brothers. Love from Australia, because I'm going to butcher that too. It's too late. I need more tea. Thanks for bringing us along the journey. Talk of 70-cent XRP looking to pack bags to overflow. Good luck to you. I showed the chart earlier. I'm not seeing 70-cent XRP. I know people wish and hope and want that to happen. I don't think so. I think a lot of people are super bearish right now and making bearish content because it converts. I'm bullish. I am probably the most bullish I have ever been on XRP right now. Like, we're literally in the midst of everything that I've been talking about for 2 years playing out. I'm pumped about where we're at. Now, it could take a little longer, and that's okay. But volatility wise, and we could see lower, I don't want to say we can't. I'm not playing that game. I would rather just dollar cost average here and know that I'm in and good to go. I'm not going to try to catch a falling knife. Marty, they say, big brother. Thanks for keeping us all informed in the Beyond Broke Mastermind. Carbon One, awesome dude. Always getting the value you strive to provide for us. God bless you and your wonderful family. Thank you, man. Thank you for the super chat and the appreciation. The 58.9 super chat. It's a sneaky 589. Hopefully we get the real 589 in the near future. There was actually something I saw today about Basel 3 that came out from the BIS, and it looks like that's right around the corner here. So what does that mean? All the paper derivatives and the spoofing and the market is going to go away. They're going to have to actually back things 1-to-1. And if that takes place, a lot of the people that are out swimming in the water with no shorts on are going to be caught. And it's not going to be a good day for them. Michael, Titans Play, says, if market cap doesn't apply to XRP, then it wouldn't apply to Bitcoin, ETH, and others, meaning their price should be higher, correct? No. I'm not to say that market cap doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to any crypto that's a network or a protocol, in my opinion. I think that that's an archaic way to look at things that's, good for stocks, because all of the shares that are currently being traded on the stock market are available for trade. But most people look at total supply of a crypto, even if there's a portion that's locked up or not circulating or not available for trade, as part of what's available for trade. And so they price the market cap accordingly. I think the correct way to price market cap would really be available supply times the current price. So for XRP, if you look at the total supply, there was originally 100 billion minted. Bitcoin would have 21 million total. There's not 21 million Bitcoin on the market, right? So there's about 20 million Bitcoin that have been minted. You could make more Ethereum at any time. There's no cap on Ethereum. So it's hard to say like what the actual market cap of Ethereum would even be, because the total supply is arbitrary. Like you could make more of it at any time. So all that being said, I mean, if you did have a finite amount that is the total circulating supply or the total supply minted, I think that a more appropriate metric for market cap would be available supply. So what's actually being traded, because there's a lot of Bitcoin that's been lost over the years. There's probably 2 million Bitcoin, if you want to count Satoshi's Bitcoin as lost, which I don't think it is. I think it'll move. But let's say 1 million Bitcoin, 2 million Bitcoin, never going to move again. They're in wallets that have been dormant for an extended period of time. The person died or lost the keys or something bad happened. So that takes Bitcoin out of circulating supply. And then you have miners and other people that have, significantly appreciated Bitcoin that aren't going to sell it. They're not going to be able to trade it on the open market because it's going to have tax implications. So they're just going to sit on it, or they might lend it to somebody else, and that might make it liquid or available again. Meanwhile has a product like that where they lend the Bitcoin that they have from their life insurance out to miners that need, stuff to sell, because that's their new basis, is what they borrowed it at, and they owe it back with 3% in Bitcoin from whatever they borrowed it at. So there's a lot of ways to be creative about it. But anyway, kind of going back to the crux of the question here. I do not think that traditional market cap applies to crypto using the total supply or the circulating supply of the token. I think if you were to apply it to available supply of the token and current trading price, that would be a more appropriate metric for people. And then, so like if you looked at XRP as an example, people are like, oh, there's 100 billion of them. And if you applied $1,000 XRP to 100 billion, it's in, it's a quadrillion-dollar market cap. But realistically, the available trading supply might only be 1 billion. And 1 billion times 1,000 would be $1 trillion. And that'd be $1 trillion market cap. People can conceptualize that. There's companies that are already $1 trillion, right? I think that that's a much more realistic way to be able to price these things. And I think people are using the wrong number when they're calculating market cap. Now, again, I don't think that that's even the best way to look at this stuff. I wrote a whole white paper on the liquidity index and the equation that I put together to be able to come to how to grade a token's liquidity. I think that that is a much better metric for a protocol or a network that moves value versus, traditional market cap that you would use for stocks. But if you were going to apply it to these digital assets, again, I would look at available trading supply and not the total supply of the crypto. Let's see here. Again, if I missed your super chat tonight, I apologize. All you got to do is email it into us. You just go to info@digitalfamilyoffice or info@beyondbroke.com, and I will have it and I will read it on Wednesday. This person says, long-time listener, first-time caller. Awesome, dude. Any thoughts on BlackRock providing private equity fund of 67 billion supposedly went to zero and then halted people making withdrawals the other night? How many XRP are left on the OTC? It's a completely separate question. I don't think that the fund went to zero, but I think it probably had a significant downturn and they halted withdrawals after it was like 9.3% of people withdrew their funds. So just like any other stock or any other, circuit breaker that we have for traditional markets, you want something to be able to quell people's emotions and give them some time to sit and reflect and think through things before they make a rash decision. And they probably have that built into their PPM and subscription agreement where they're able to do that at their own discretion. Probably look for those things when you're subscribing to stuff. But yeah, there's definitely some problems there for people to be withdrawing that much at a single time. And then when it comes to, XRP left on the OTC desk, actually, I'm going to pull this up here. I haven't looked at this today, so I'm going to look at it real time with you guys. We are going to go to Whale Alert. If you guys don't know that account, I would follow it over there on Twitter. It shows all the large transactions that are happening across the majority of large blockchains. Every single month when Ripple unlocks their escrow, they report on that over here on Whale Alert. And this month they relocked 700 million XRP just like they normally do. But 300 million of that XRP went over here to this wallet. So I will pull this up here and show you guys. This one. Come on. There we go. Okay. You guys can see this now. So if you're looking at XRP scan, you can look up this wallet. This wallet is owned by Ripple. It is Ripple 9. Actually, that's where it came from. So Ripple 9 escrowed some XRP, and then it was sent here. So Ripple 1, this was an early escrow that was released on the initial escrow here to this wallet. Ripple has, I think, 53 wallets total, somewhere in there. But you can see that this still has half a billion XRP sat in this wallet that landed here on the 2nd of this month. So they have not sold this onto the open market. I haven't seen Ripple actually, move any of their XRP onto the open market. And so I believe that the OTC desks are drying up, and so are the dark pools. That's really the only XRP that I would expect to move onto the market to continue to supply those. So I think it's dwindling. I've said a couple times I thought it was below a couple 100,000 at the end of months. And I think that's where we're at again. And without this moving on there to be able to supplement that, I think we're pretty close to that volume moving over to exchanges. Truckin' Magic Man says, do you think we could see catalysts such as the reverse carry trade and supply shock happen simultaneously or close together? I'd like to consider a life abroad when price goes north of $10 and take a deserved victory lap. I think you're going to be able to do it, my man. Hopefully you enjoy time with your family or whoever you want to travel with, and you're able to go see all the places in this world. I'm a big fan of that. I've been really blessed, and I'm grateful to have been able to travel the last 4 years here outside the US and it just gives me perspective. Like, you get to see how other people live. We've been to Turkey, we've been to the Middle East, we've been to Canada, we've been to South America and Mexico. I've been to Dominican Republic. If you haven't ever been to the Dominican Republic and you live here in the US, I would encourage you to go. When you, like, the resorts are nice, don't get me wrong, but like, if you actually get out on the island and you go see how bad the infrastructure is and how people live there, your perspective, like, I was 16 when my parents took me there, and to see that, like, we took a little like bus tour around the island, and they talked about the median income being like $320 a year. Like, that's all they make. And the only way that they make money on the island is if they work at one of the resorts. And even then, they only make like $10 a day. Like, that's their whole salary. So, quality of life is pretty low, but it really gives you perspective and how blessed we really are here in the US with the infrastructure that we have and the privilege that we have for being the reserve currency and all the wonderful opportunities that you're afforded just by being born here versus somewhere else. So, hopefully you get some perspective and you get to go see all the beautiful places around the world when you're traveling. And I do think that the reverse carry trade and supply shock are going to be very tightly timed when that occurs. We got Czar. Thank you for the super chat. They say, JCU legend. Thanks for all the insights and open answers. How many bips will the Bank of Japan have to raise rates by? Also, why don't we need Clarity Act for this to be pulled off between Japan and the US? They might need the stablecoin piece worked out, but that's in the Genius Act. I do think that, we're going to need banks and institutions to issue stablecoins to be able to drive demand for the treasuries that are going to flow onto the market. But XRP in and of itself is not a security as of 7/13/2023, when the judge gave that clarity on the token in the Ripple SEC lawsuit. So XRP can be adopted and used. It's already listed on Bitnomial as a commodity. So I think that's why we don't need the Clarity Act. I think that they can already, solve the problem with XRP. And then as far as BIPs go, if it's an emergency meeting, most of the time you don't see emergency meetings for less than 50 BIPs. I think that would be enough to move everything in the direction that we want to see it. But it could be more. I mean, the Bank of Japan's talked about raising all the way up to 2% is where they would like to be. So I don't know that they're going to do that all in one move, but if they did, that would be a wild ride. We got Terry. He says, Jake, I set up my LLC. Awesome, dude. I have began getting an account at Old Glory, but have technical questions. Who should I reach out to for help? Super appreciative of all you do, as well as your bride. Best double T. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, glad to be working with you. Old Glory is awesome. If you want to just reach out to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, one of our team members there should be able to work with you. The other thing that you could do, and I probably shouldn't say this on the live, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to get in trouble. We finally listed a phone number on the website. So if you guys want to call and talk to a person, today was the first day that we had that listed up there, and it was ringing off the hook all day long. So I know people want that. We've implemented a system to be able to take that in. So if you do want to call and ask a question, I would ask that you're respectful of our people's time. Obviously, we want a relationship with our clients, and we do care, and we want to know about your family and your kids and all those things. But if you're calling the hotline, try to keep it quick, just because they do need to answer other people that are calling. And if you're okay with waiting a little bit to get a response and it's not something urgent, I would suggest an email. And you can also email to get a call back. So that would be another way to do it. But yeah, that's live. And again, would love to work with you to figure out the technical components over there at Old Glory. Might just call them on that one, because it's not something that we provide. We're working on some stuff. Okay. But Old Glory is separate of what we're doing, and you probably just want to call them if you have some technical issues. Getting the account set up. And again, really glad to be working with you on the LLC. If you need an LLC to be able to manage your digital assets and you want to work with us, we do everything end to end for $2,000 if you use the code 50OFF, 50OFF LLC. That's 50OFF LLC. Get you everything for $2,000 on the LLC to manage your crypto. CRC 1234 says, Jake, could you explain in layman's terms how the reverse carry trade translates to XRP price appreciation? In other words, why will XRP go up because of this? You can go watch any one of the 4 domino videos that I have on my YouTube channel, and it will run you through all of that. We got Roughknit. He says, we want to meet the tea lady, your beautiful wife. She is beautiful, but she's mine. And if you come to some Mastermind events and stuff like that, you might get to see her. But I don't know that she's going to be on here. She's the crypt keeper in the Mastermind. Booner Sooner says, if this war ends in days or weeks, will that cause your theory to still happen? The damage is already done, I believe, because if it's quick, the inflation of this is short-lived. It's not short-lived, though. Just, the straight for it to open back up to full capacity is going to take at least, a month or more. And so the inflation is going to continue to persist. It's not going to stop. It's not like if they open the strait up tomorrow that things are fixed. And they've already started shutting down oil supplies. Like, it takes a while to turn everything back on. The damage is already done, and we're absolutely going to see that affect the reverse carry trade. Stuart says, for those of us contemplating marriage in the near future, does trust in LLCs eliminate the need for a prenup? No, it does not. Are assets under a test protected from alimony? They would be if you set those things up prior to price appreciation and you gift them out of your taxable estate. You're going to want to set up an irrevocable trust that has a trust protector that's not your spouse or somebody that they could manipulate. And you're going to want a distribution trustee. Look, nobody wants to get divorced. I hope that you get married and it's wonderful and it lasts a full lifetime. I think that's everybody's intent when they get married. But at the same time, prenups are not a bad thing. Also, she might have assets that she wants to protect. I know my wife did, right? So, all those things being said, I think that you had a life before you got married. You may have had some success before you got married. And the things that you do together during your marriage, I think both of you should benefit from. But if there was property or things done prior to that, then that's worth a conversation, right? It's not like it's the end all be all. There's one solution. And part of that conversation is not monetary either. There are a lot of things that a spouse or my wife does for me that don't have any monetary meaning, but they're peace of mind. She makes our house a home. She takes care of my child. She goes above and beyond as a wife a lot of the time. So, all those things factor in. It's not like it's a clean science. We actually have a book called Spicy Prenups. If you want to go read that, just kind of as far as best practices and things on the prenup front. And I would work with a seasoned estate planner or tax attorney. And I would just sit down with your spouse, both of you, and have a conversation. And it may come to the point where you don't need one at all, or you may decide that you both want one. Like I said, you may both have assets that you want to protect if something were to go sideways. So the trust is an effective tool with that. And again, I can only give you kind of my 2 cents, but a professional would be much better at giving you the best form of action for you and your spouse or future spouse. And congratulations, by the way. I wish you guys a long, prosperous marriage, and I hope it's filled with love and wonderful, wonderful memories. Truth of Hearts, KT Baby, what's going on? They say Bluey needs to go. You almost poked your eye out. Will you be taking a month off or turning off all devices after price appreciation? These crybabies be bugging. Let's go price appreciation. Blessings. No, I would love to just disconnect for a little while. I don't think I'm going to be able to. There's just the company, and then everybody in the mastermind, and it'll take a while. We'll get there. At some point, I'll be able to go on like a 3 or 4 day siesta or a jaunt somewhere. But anything more than that, like I get restless anyway. Like I can't be on a beach sipping mojitos and drinking margaritas for more than 2 or 3 days. Like I feel like I need to be doing something. I need to be providing value. I need to be working. And so, yeah, but I will say like 2 or 3 days on a beach sounds really good right now. So, but it won't be post price appreciation. It'll be probably 3 to 5 months after price appreciation when I'll finally actually get to celebrate. We'll grab a couple more and then we'll wrap it up. We got Cowboy Preacher. Thank you for being here, man, and I appreciate you. How do you spread your wealth over your family after price appreciation? I have 3 kids, and they have 3 kids each. How do you structure that to last generations? You build incentives around stuff. So I'm already over on my time here, but I think this one's worth, kind of ending on. I'm going to do 4 different things for my son. So I'll pay for any education, but that requires him to go to 3 meetings or events that I pick each year. He can, go to school to be an underwater basket weaver. But he's going to know how to sell those underwater baskets he wove and run a business and be able to market and understand finances and how to finance stuff and logistics and all the things in order to be able to actually do something with it. The other thing is I will match his salary in full in a lump sum at the end of each year that he earns more than 6 figures out of the family trust. And he can't live off that. He has to invest that money. So, but he's got to make at least $100,000 a year to even get the payout. So in order to do that, like you got to be creating value in society. Like you have to be hustling, you have to be doing something to be able to generate 6 figures. If he wants to borrow money from the family, he has to come with 20% down, and then we will lend to him at 1% less than prime, whatever that is. So right now it'd be like 3%. On a note if he wanted to borrow money. But again, he's got to bring 20% down, and we'll only do that against hard assets. So it's got to be a piece of real estate. It's got to be a business that already cash flows. It has to be something that actually already has value and there's recourse against it if he defaults. It can't be a startup. It's not a line of credit on a startup. He can use this last one for that though. So I'm also going to fund a life insurance policy. Trump talks about, he started with a small loan from his father for $1 million. Look, we would all love to give our children that opportunity, right? Just be real. And obviously he's become a billionaire off of that. Now he came from family money and had opportunities and had connections and all those things. And that's absolutely true. Okay. But it still requires work. It's not like you just get to sit on your butt and have a silver spoon in your mouth. and become a billionaire. Okay. Now, was it easier for him than other people? For sure. But it still required work. But at the same time, like I said, you would want to afford your children that opportunity. So what I'm going to do for him is I'm going to fund a life insurance policy. That'll be an IUL. He is at an age now, if I do that over the next 11 or 12 years and I pay a couple grand a month into that, it should be worth about $1 million when he's 25. And at that point, it's his. I'm not funding it anymore. If he wants to borrow against it, that's on his own deal. He can use that to buy a house. He can use it to start a business. He can use it for the down payment if he wants to come to the family to borrow money. But that's his $1 million to mess up. And if he, borrows it all and never pays it back, the life insurance will cover it. So those are the 4 things I'm doing for him. Those are just things that I've learned from people that are smarter than me that have managed money for multiple generations. The other thing is you want to structure it as a family office, right? So you want your family involved. You probably want some philanthropic component. Some of the best books and people that I've talked to, how they do it is they'll get their children involved with the charity when they're somewhere between 10 and 12 years old and help them start to dole out the money. Like they review all the applications for the charitable entity, and then they decide which ones they're going to appropriate the money to. Gets your children in the mood of giving and helps them work through, due diligence and deciding on things. It sounds like you got grandbabies, which is great. You can do a generational skipping trust where if your children are over the point now where they don't have the financial education and you're concerned about them messing it up, they can only live off of the dividends or the distributions of the assets, and the assets actually pass to your grandchildren. You can also set up a dynasty trust, where it's kind of like a family bank and there's rules around who can access that money for what reason, and again, you can kind of dole things out based on aligned incentives like I just talked about. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And depending on your long-term goals for the continuity of the family, you may want people to spin out their own family offices, because that's where things kind of get wonky when you get like the DuPonts are on their 7th or 8th generation of their family office. And over the lifetime of that family, they've lived off of the cash flow. So early on, they owned DuPont and GM stock, and that paid dividends, and that's what the family lived off of. And now they don't own either one of those stocks. They have a portfolio of bonds and annuities and other things that pay cash distributions for 50% of the family's wealth. And the other 50% is invested in alternatives and real estate and other things that are a bit more delayed in the outcome, but have higher appreciation and at least some cash flow. And they have a venture portfolio that they trade the beta on. So they don't go after alpha. They take about 20% of their portfolio and they put it in seed Series A startups in New York and Silicon Valley are the 2 jurisdictions that they invest in. And they kind of spray and pray because they know that the beta on that's going to be 50% over 5 years. So, again, I would listen to podcasts about family office. I would listen to fund managers and people that have managed endowments and how they structure that to be able to protect capital over extended periods of time. That's what the DuPont family office, like the gentleman that runs that now, went and shadowed under multiple endowments at like Harvard and Stanford and other large universities. And that's how he came to be able to manage the portfolio in the way that he is now. So, again, if you're structuring a family office, you're probably going to have a financial committee that's going to make the financial decisions. They're going to have guardrails around what investments they can make and up to what thresholds. And then you'll have a family board. And if there's anything outside of those thresholds that you've designated in the investment agreement, then they'll come to the family board and say, hey, we have this opportunity, or we think we should allocate more here than what we're allowed to. Can you guys vote on this? And you'll have somewhere between 3 and 7 people on the family board that would then all vote to see, if they think that that's the right opportunity or where that money should go. But you want to keep family politics separate of the wealth management, because that's where a lot of families go wrong. People are spiteful, and especially after multiple generations, if there's not continuity, really built into the ethos of the family, and there's people that get petty they can actually end up burning through the money or doing stupid things to spite other people in the family. So you want to maintain, other people that are managing the money versus the people that are on the board making high level decisions that actually participate from the family. So, and you want to make sure the people doing the financial committee are like seasoned professionals, investment bankers. And it's not to say that family members can't be on that, but they have to actually go work in the real world and work for a hedge fund and manage billions of dollars before they're, suitable or fit to sit in that seat. Anyway, these are just best practices that I've come across in our time working with family offices. We got people falling off here because it's past their bedtime. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. Again, if I missed your super chat, please email it to us, info@beyondbroke.com or info@digitalfamilyoffice. If you need an LLC to be able to manage your digital assets, we would love to work with you to do that. Just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50 OFFDAGLLC. If you want to join the mastermind, we'd love to see you in there. Again, we're locking it down on the other side of a $10 XRP. So you can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2. And we are running the special. So if you have more than $100,000 in crypto and you want access to institutional custody at Anchorage and you want an advisor and you want access to the products that we're releasing this year in 2026, all you got to do is go to digitalwealthpartners.net, use the contact us form, and we'll get you going over there. So with that, we'll wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we will see you on Wednesday.